everyone. 3 streams. We made it. I'd like to thank everybody for their patience, and we actually ended up having 3 really good stories to go over. I will say that I'm sorry that today was not a subscriber participation stream. I had considered doing that, but until the hate dies down out there, I don't feel comfortable making it open to a subscriber, just having to be a subscriber to comment. I apologize about that, but I'd probably spend a good portion of the stream having to just block comments. And that's not fun for you. So I think we'll be fine. But that's just kind of the position that we unfortunately find ourselves in. All right, so we're talking today actually still a lot about Star Wars and Disney. And by the way, I'd like to thank everybody who's tuning in, even if they cannot participate in the chat. I really appreciate it, and it means a lot to me. And you know, either if you're watching it live or after the fact, you know, just I really appreciate your support. I always do, but I particularly feel it, you know, in these little bit more difficult scenarios. Okay. I think I'm having to deal with bots and stuff. I've been looking into it a little bit. I think it's a large portion of bots. So that's bizarre. I've never had to deal with that before. And you know, it is what it is. Okay. I did write out my Acolyte 4 breakdown for Tuesday, and I think we're going to have a really good time. All right, but we have other stuff to discuss today. We have 4 great stories. As always, please try to keep your questions and comments to the story at hand. And then, of course, at the end of the stream, as always, the final 10 minutes are for you to ask me anything that you would like. That's the place to do it. Okay, all right, story number 1. Boop. Okay, so Disney is contending with a lot of hate. I've never seen a company so in the sights of a target. Hey, thank you, Cat Jack, as I've seen with Disney. However, Bob Iger, I wouldn't say he's put blinders on, you know. I think he's just moving forward. I think you will see a shift in the style of content that Disney produces in the next 1 to 2 years. You know, a lot of the stuff that you're seeing now was approved before I think Bob Iger returned and before this problem really became like a big problem. And so Bob Iger has said, you know, it should be story first, message second. And I think that Disney has flipped those in a way that's detrimental to them having the broad audience that they're known for. So I think that eventually you'll see a shift. But first they have to get through all the content that they already put through. I am curious, you know, Inside Out 2, I've seen it, very traditional film. I think that it's designed to do well. Deadpool and Wolverine, of course I haven't seen it yet. They are leaning very heavily on, you know, the flirtation, thank you, Paul, between Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm curious to see how far that goes in the movie. And, you know, sometimes, you know, we're going to talk about it with Blade Runner, but sometimes things don't bother people. House of the Dragon, well, let's see how people react to season 2. But, you know, House of the Dragon is a progressive show. Fallout is a very progressive show, and yet was very popular. So it's kind of hard to know where people are going to fall on a project. And I think they seem to have a particularly difficult time with Disney. Riley is not LGBT, for those of you asking. Hey, Sadhu. You know, they specifically address her having a crush on some guy characters that I don't want to say anything about the movie, but that is made clear. All right, so anyway, I was concerned that with all the projections that they were making for Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine, that potentially they weren't factoring in all the hate that we're seeing online. However, seems like they're still doing real well because the numbers are starting to come in and they're still very strong. All right, so the first headline that we have here is that Inside Out 2 last night did an impressive 13 million. It is by far and away the biggest Thursday night of the year of 2024, although of course that's not saying much. But when you compare it to some other recent debuts, you get a little bit more perspective. I'm grabbing this from Variety here. We're getting a little sneak peek of movie math. All right, so 13 million, that's a little bit higher than The Little Mermaid last year, which debuted with 10.3. Minions, also 10.8. And Toy Story 4 is very close with 12 million. We're going to look at Pixar's box office in a minute. And then it's a little bit lower, well, I'd say considerably lower than Spider-Man Across the Universe at 17.4 and Incredibles 2 at 18.5. I think those have more adult fans, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Incredibles 2, whereas I think those other things are a stronger family play. But 13 is very, very good. So what kind of opening might we be looking at? The trades have finally learned their lesson, and they're lowballing Inside Out 2 at 80 to 90. They're not saying 100 million right now. However, don't get ahead of the story, guys. All right, however, let's take a look at Pixar's box office, okay? Hold on, let me make it a little bigger so you can see it. Bye, I'll see you in a minute. All right, so if you look at Toy Story, which was right around there, Toy Story opened at 120. There you can see the number right there, and got to $1 billion. So that's very promising. That's very promising. So yeah, Toy Story 4, 120, got to $1 billion, and it had about the same opening as Inside Out 2 on Thursday night. Let's see how it goes the rest of the weekend, but a lot of families are going to want to go to the movies for Father's Day. It's tough to figure out something to do with Dad. Okay, so if you look at the openings, if they could make it to around 100 million or even close to that, that would give them their biggest opening since Toy Story 4. Incredibles 2 was ginormous, but that would be almost double Coco, Cars. They're not going to touch Finding Dory. Definitely bigger than The Good Dinosaur, and it could match or surpass the original Inside Out. But you can say even the original Inside Out, still wasn't huge in the appeal. It still opened with 90 instead of 100, and it got to 850. So, this is not a $1 billion franchise to begin with. So I think that's very encouraging, and we'll see how. It would certainly be a return to form for Pixar, and so I think it's looking very, very strong for them. Don't forget, by the way, Movie Math will be on Monday this week because of Father's Day. All right, now let's take a look at this insane Deadpool and Wolverine projection. No, so tracking came online today, and they're saying, we think it's going to open with over 200 million. In fact, they specify down below here 200 to 239, and they're calling that conservative. That would be, that is quite the prediction. I hope that it's that big. Okay, so you guys want a poll? All right, we'll do a poll. What do you think? Deadpool. And remember, it's rated R. We'll open with. We'll do 200 million plus. Then we'll do 150 to 1. It's like Price is Right here, man. Okay. Then 100 to 150 million. And then if you want to be a troll, you could say under 100 million. Under 100 million. Okay. Oh, and by the way, anyone who's watching can, of course, vote in the poll. But that's incredible. Let's compare that to some other box office. So they're looking at around 200 to 239. When I saw this, I was like, are they talking about worldwide? Because sometimes these days, that's right, it's domestic CM. Sometimes, they quote a worldwide number to try and make it look better. They're like, Bad Boys opened to 100 million worldwide. And you're like, stop messing with the numbers. So I looked at this and I was like, oh my gosh, it is domestic. Thanks to Struggle is Real. Thank you. Okay, so let's take a look. It's a very nice sentiment, but I can't stop the discussion too much. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the X-Men box office. Okay, hold on, I'll be back. Alrighty, what are we looking at here? So, an X-Men movie has never opened that big. Ever in the history of the franchise. The Deadpool movies opened at 132 and 125. That's insane. How could it make such a huge jump? I wonder if they're even thinking about the fact that it's rated R. I don't even know what to say. It's so crazy. All right, so the biggest openings have been the Deadpool films, and yet still they're about 70 million away, or even 100 million away. That's right. Well, little baby pizza says, it's all Wolverine, baby. You know, if it is right, Hugh Jackman's price should go up considerably after this, and he will certainly be front and center in Secret Wars. He and Tom Holland are just going to do a little happy dance, especially considering how much they're getting paid. So that's incredible. All right, so that would just be, it's just, again, it's like you just can hardly think about how it defies expectation. Then if you look at the MCU box office, all right, I changed this because there's been so many Marvel movies. I did this in the order of the biggest openings. So the biggest opening they've ever had is $357 million with Avengers Endgame. Truly an incredible experience. I still remember it to this day. Then Spider-Man No Way Home, which is technically a Sony movie, but it would be putting that in striking distance. So again, it would be the nostalgia game. 200 to 239 would be putting it in the proximity of this movie. Then the last time they had something that grossed over 200 million would be Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War, both in 2018. Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness came close with 187 right after the pandemic, but that's all they've got. That would just be incredible. It would be incredible. It would really be a return to form for Marvel. It would look so good for Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. I mean, it would just give them tremendous power within Marvel. Deservedly so, because you'd be like, that's nuts, man. I mean, it's just incredible. Let me close the poll here. Hold on, Riley. Okay, what do you think Deadpool and Wolverine will open with? 39% of you think 100 to 150, putting it around the first two Deadpool movies. 33% think can get close to 200, upper 100s. Only 19% of you think it'll pass 200 million, and 7% of you are upset with Disney and think it's going to open it under 100. I really would be surprised if it could cross $200 million. It would be such a game changer. It would be putting Marvel back on top, but it would also be a game changer for the R-rated blockbuster. Right? It depends how R-rated it is. Typically American audiences don't have too much of a problem with violence, but they do have an issue with sexual innuendo. Ryan Reynolds got away with quite a bit of it in the Deadpool movies, but it'll be curious to see what happens to him with this movie. Riley says Multiverse of Madness only got 187, and that was supposed to be No Way Home level as well, wasn't it? What if Deadpool also ends up being only medium like Doctor Strange? That's a very good point, Riley. Multiverse of Madness was really hyped up, and everybody felt, and at a point it did have a lot of the characters in it that were discussed, but they changed it significantly, pared it down, and I think it just didn't deliver on what people had wanted. It was supposed to be Marvel's No Way Home. Now everyone's saying that this will be like the Fox X-Men No Way Home. I mean, the Fox Marvel movies No Way Home. And that would be great if that's how it turns out. They're keeping it very close to the vest, very similar to the No Way Home advertising. And Ryan Reynolds is no dummy. I'm sure he's, paying attention to all this. But, we have to see what the reviews are. We have to see if it delivers. We have to see, which way does it lean politically, if in any direction at all. I mean, there are potential problems with the dynamic between Deadpool and Wolverine and Cassandra Nova, and that actress. People are getting so upset about pronouns. I mean, for heaven's sakes, why can't you respect someone's pronouns? It takes so little from you to respect that. Okay, let's see here. Melmac says, I will be in Manila when Deadpool and Wolverine premieres, so my money will be counted in the international box office. Oh, I like it. I love going to the movies when I'm on vacation and seeing what it's like to go to the movies in other countries. It's really a fun thing to do. CCC, you haven't seen the movie. You don't know what the messaging is. I think that, Deadpool Ryan Reynolds is really leaning into the fact that Deadpool is pansexual, and he is really showing off a family that Deadpool has made, which is something right out of the LGBT community. So maybe people, again, will choose not to see these things because it's inconvenient to them wanting to enjoy the movie. And that seems to be the situation. People pick and choose when they're going to let something bother them. And you never know when when they're going to decide to do that for yours. I do think that the boys might have ended up going too far with their MAGA commentary, and they might have lost a significant part of their audience. NoFX says Ryan Reynolds' humor might be considered outdated with younger audiences at this point. That's what I'm hearing. That's very interesting, NoFX. I mean, we'll see if that happens, but he does have a specific frame of reference. And a lot of his jokes, perhaps won't land. He's very Robin Williams stream of consciousness. But yeah, I don't really know if he's, we're in a strange place in life or in society where there's the people on circulating around the boomers, right? And then there's this very new Gen Z and stuff like that. And you're finally at a point where I think it's 50-50. And two sides could not be more different in how they conduct themselves and what is important to them. And I think that's why you're seeing another really difficult situation out there. And I think maybe another reason why you're seeing a fracturing of audiences, where it's harder to get everybody to like one thing because, people aren't all on the same page. So some people are really into the Euphoria stuff, and some people are really into Yellowstone. Those are, I guess, the two extremes. And it's hard to try and get all of them. So I think, it's interesting to see Disney maybe move a little bit in the direction of the conservatives. They just buried the hatchet with Ron DeSantis because they got their deal to move forward and a little more freedom, although they still are going to have oversight. They can't just totally do whatever they want anymore in Florida. And I think that's understandable. Some of the rides have deteriorated to the point where you're like, maybe you should have an inspector come and look at these things. So I think probably, wouldn't it be nice if everything worked out okay in the end for everybody and everything, just like maybe it will for Disney. Also, we're going to talk about the Rock deal at the end of this live stream, and that is, I think, a little bit of a step in the conservative direction as well. So Bob Iger, he's a very savvy businessman, and I think he's trying to traverse Yellowstone and Euphoria. And I mean, if anyone could do it, it's Daddy Iger. But I don't know, I don't know if it can be done. But I think that's what he's trying to do. And, I guess you really can't argue with the fact that he's going to have the two biggest movies of the summer, probably. Thanks, Freedom Tompkins. Bryce says, I think the Multiverse of Madness movie issues because the entire movie leaked on Twitter and TikTok. It's interesting you bring that up, Bryce, because I've seen so much of The Boys on social media. And so I can see people being like, oh, I was going to watch it, but I already saw it. Thank you, Yaya. That's very nice of you. I love seeing you, Yaya. I think that everybody thinks they saw everything already. That's really also very interesting. The studios need to get on. I mean, Elon Musk's just going to give them the finger because they won't advertise on his platform. So I don't know. Maybe they should be like, maybe we will if you take down the content. Because, I think that they need to talk to TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and say, you got to take this content down. It's it's copyrighted material. I guess it would be very expensive to do that. But, I don't know. If I were Disney, I'd be like, I'll send you the links, man. You just click delete. George Uporci says, I've been dating my girlfriend for a little over a month, and Deadpool 3 is her first time seeing a Marvel movie opening night. The pressure, George Uporci. All of us comic book, any one of us who's a fan has at one time or another had to apologize to someone that we made sit through something that we were sure they were going to love, but it turns out they did not. I've had to do that a couple of times. I think Thor: The Dark World is the one I, of course, remember the most. Let's see here. Let's see. Classic bunny librarian. I love your name. Look at your picture. It's a bunny reading a book. 200 million opening weekend only confirmed if Taylor actually does make a cameo. Is Taylor that powerful? She's very powerful. The other day, Trump was complaining that she wasn't endorsing him. I think if Taylor Swift was smart, she wouldn't endorse anybody this election. Well, let's see how close the polls are. Hey, Sadie Creekwood. And again, if it was a regular conservative candidate, I wouldn't have any issue. I have a particular issue with this particular candidate. Okay. All right, so does anybody have any questions or comments about this? I just thanked Sadie, right? Thank you, Sadie. I don't know what society's going to do about the hate in general. Aided Buffalo 32. Taylor, I don't think Taylor Swift herself is a conservative. I believe her family is conservative. I think Taylor's pretty liberal. Anna says, I've had to do that too as a fan. I've tried to share things I love that I think others will enjoy. I know. And you're like, oh, sorry. I did close the poll, Dakota. But thank you for reminding me anyway. Sadie Creekwood, don't say we're going to have a civil war. I've lived through enough history. I don't need another. I don't need to have been like, yes, and then we had Civil War II. No, thank you. Chris Kahn, come on. Come on, Chris. I appreciate your support, but, again, like, why do people have to go there and say just such horribly mean things about people? Like, just say you just don't like somebody. No Taylor Swift slander here, please. I'm a big fan of Taylor Swift. I don't love all of her songs, but I really like Taylor. I understand a lot of what she has to go through, I think she's a really nice, kind person. And, you don't have to like her, but please don't say bad things about her. CM says, have you seen Io Idabiri's look on the press tour for Inside Out? Yeah, her glam team is like on fire. She looks incredible. She just looks stunning. Yeah, I would agree that Taylor Swift is overexposed. And I will also say, as much as I love Taylor, when I found out she wasn't in Deadpool and Wolverine, I was quite pleased. I was like, yes, please let this be true and not just a misdirect. Because I think it would be disastrous for her and the movie if she were to appear in it. I think it's not going to be great for Blake Lively even at this point. They got to be really careful. I'm really, really nervous. I'm so nervous about this movie. Okay. All right, let's boop to the next story. Story number 2. Boop. Okay, speaking of Star Wars and all the hate that it's getting, do the people who work at Amazon not see this? And I'm really getting nervous as they put together their Blade Runner show, Blade Runner 2099. Thank you, Sadie. I'm like, oh my God, you guys, are you kidding yourselves here? I mean, I love the people they've cast, but I mean, like, don't make these poor people have to be in a bad situation. Please, 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 protect them with a well-rounded cast. So Michelle Yeoh was already in Blade Runner 2099, and now Hunter Shafer has joined the cast in an undisclosed role. But I would bet, well, I wouldn't actually bet, but I'm extremely confident that she's playing a replicant. And I think that's fantastic casting. I think that she would just be an absolutely phenomenal replicant. I think she would play off so well. Thank you again, Sadie. I think she would play so well off of what Rutger Hauer in particular established. But it's just incredible casting. Now, I've never watched Euphoria, but I have seen her in the most recent Hunger Games, and I thought that she did a very, very nice job. So I think that Hunter Shafer is a very, very well cast here. I think she's a good actress. I think she is very interesting in terms of the commentary also in her casting. Tenerife, my apologies. A replicant is an android. It's an artificial human being. And I think that, they're built to be whatever you want them to be. And I think that Hunter Shafer, who is a trans actress, is just a really good choice for that. I think it's great. But I am concerned about this having a similar issue with Star Wars, in particular the Acolyte. Now, I don't understand. Maybe you guys can tell me why, for those of you who are on the other side of that stuff, okay? Why didn't Fallout get criticized? Was it because of the Westworld background? Oh, yeah, I agree with everybody that she'd be a wonderful Mystique. I don't know if, let's see how, if I were Kevin Feige, I would look to see how she was received in Blade Runner. And if she did a good job in Blade Runner, and if it was a popular show with fans, I would probably make her Mystique. But I mean, I really need to protect the X-Men movies. Although I gotta tell you, X-Men 97 was like very progressive and LGBT, and people seem to be okay with that. Although again, some people just ignored the LGBT elements. They were like, oh, more Morph isn't flirting with Wolverine, and then the creator of the show is like, no, he is flirting with Wolverine, and I guess people just decided to ignore that. Anna Kosel wants to point out that Hunter Shafer is taking the Jodie Comer role that she couldn't take due to scheduling. I think this is actually better casting, to be honest with you. I think that Hunter Shafer, I think that this could not be a more perfect project for her, and I hope it goes well. I'm nervous. Fallout has a female lead and an African-American lead, or a black lead. I don't understand why people were okay with this, Walton Goggins does take up a lot of energy in the room. That's true, Chris Kahn. There was not a lot of LGBT content here. And then also, I do wonder if the strong 1950s aspect had a part in it. Very strong 1950s, society in there. And so that may be part of why the show was not targeted. So I guess maybe that protected it. But it's a very diverse show. Adam Sphere says that Fallout had male energy and The Acolyte does not. That's very interesting. And perhaps there aren't a lot of women on social media, or perhaps not in the spaces that we are, so that's why we're not seeing more defense of The Acolyte, and I'm stuck out here by myself. But that's interesting, I do feel that while, of course, you don't want to see the terrorists win, I do feel that from a business perspective, you should be working, and I've said this for a while now about Star Wars, that they need to protect itself against this kind of hate and criticism. So I feel like, and The Last of Us is a very LGBT diverse show, and no one seems to have an issue with that. Perhaps because, again, of the male energy. That's fascinating to me. Must study what this male energy is. That's very, very interesting. I think that I'm curious to what everybody thinks after they see The Acolyte episode 4. The strongest episode, my favorite episode. I really, really loved it. But that's right, I did have a Yoda moment, Mish. So yes, study this male energy, we will. So yeah, and I guess, and I would agree that I agree with Bob Iger that message comes second, not first. Story is supposed to be first. That's right, J.A. Barbie was beautifully balanced in all ways. It had male and female energy, and the story was, I think the story and the message were 50-50. I loved Barbie. Okay, so I think I'm worried about Blade Runner, and let me tell you why. I think that's a good note. Some of you should tweet this very nice woman, Silka Louisa, here she is, and be like, Silka, protect yourself. I would be going over these scripts with a fine-tooth comb for Blade Runner 2099. And I'd be like, we need to put some male energy in here. Because this woman, she is the, I can't believe that Amazon hired her for Blade Runner. Although based on the last Blade Runner movie, it has no audience. Okay, so anyway, this is her bio. Now, she worked on Halo, but that is kind of mixed in the way people perceived it. But The Shining Girls, I don't know how you go from The Shining Girls to Blade Runner. I would think that would disqualify you from that property. And the fact that now that I know she's done The Shining Girls and cast 2 women, I'm nervous, I'm nervous, man. It's not fun to be in the middle of a hate storm, let me tell you. It really sucks. And I'm sure it's not fun for the actors and the studio. And that's why I think there should be made some effort to combat it. And to, again, have balance in the projects that you're doing if they're supposed to have a wide audience. If you have a niche product, that can have, Euphoria, I think, is a 3 million viewership or something, right? Whereas these other shows have 15 million, right? Well, then that's great. Then you can be more niche. But if you're something like Star Wars or Marvel, you need to have a little bit broader appeal. All right, let's see what's going on here. So let's go over some of your questions and comments. So Resident Justice says, Fallout was much better written and produced than The Acolyte and far more faithful to the brand and IP. That's an interesting point as well. I think that The Acolyte is fine. It's very young adult writing, which, someone who enjoyed young adult novels, I think it's cozy. But yeah. Thanks, Ben Pello. I see you out there. let's see here. And then Blair Wraith says casting somebody from who's LGBT while telling a compelling story is all people want. But when they cast somebody just for Blair, I'm surprised to hear that coming from you, Blair. But let's see here. That's what turns people off. My concern is that I don't think it's fair to diverse actors in every case of the word, be it gender or ethnicity. I think that it's not fair when they are not put in good content because it hurts them. But yet I think The Acolyte is very good content. I think that where The Acolyte, The Acolyte really kind of, I think everybody should enjoy everybody's stories. I think that's really important. Like everybody enjoyed Black Panther, and that was, that didn't have to have other, it didn't have to have big white characters in it, and still everybody enjoyed it. So I think that the problem with The Acolyte is the attitude that was taken by the people who were associated with it before the show even launched, which is maybe that's why the hate started there. And again, I still think to this day that Kathleen Kennedy is haunted by saying you don't need to watch, that she doesn't need the original fans. And it's funny because, Eric Kripke for The Boys kind of said the same thing. And it's like, why would you want to kick any of your fans out of your world? I think that the approach of anybody, especially working in something that's supposed to have broad appeal, is we hope everybody enjoys this and gets to know this character. And while some people, of course, would still hate on it, I think that other people would not. CM says they want Hunter to be the first trans movie star. They need to handle these projects extremely carefully to help normalize LGBT actors as leads. Same with Jonathan Bailey in the new Jurassic movie. I would agree with that, CM, and I think to date, Hollywood has not been careful with its LGBT stars, but at least progress is being made. I felt very bad. Thank you, Ace. I felt very bad for Matt Bomer, who shared a story about how he did not get the Superman role despite having a deal with Warner Brothers overall because it came out to the casting people and the producers that he was not out at the time, I believe, but that he was LGBT. And I saw a lot of people, some mean comments being like, the comments were arguing that it was, who was right for the role. But I mean, take one look at Matt Bomer. He would have been a great Superman, particularly because Jude Law just came out and said they were thinking of him. And Matt Bomer and Jude Law have a very similar vibe. So, my pleasure, Topher. So I am frustrated, and I think that, it puts everybody in a really bad position. But I want to clarify that if I didn't think The Acolyte was a good show, I would say so. I have commented before. I said Buzz Lightyear missed the mark. I'm always very honest in how I actually feel. And then if The Acolyte doesn't do well, I will say that it's not doing well. Although it's still pretty high on Disney Plus trending. So we'll see what, I don't know if everybody's hate watching it or whatever, but people are watching the show. So we'll see it didn't do as well as Ahsoka out of the gate. Also, everybody says they love Andor, but nobody watched Andor. Its ratings were crap. Everybody's like, Andor is what we should pay attention to. And you're like, but nobody watched that show. And then, everybody says they like Dave Filoni, but then nobody, the people weren't watching the last season of The Mandalorian. So, Dancing Dog 60, I'm glad you're enjoying The Acolyte as well. And by the way, again, you don't have to like it. Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right. Oh, it's getting a little hot. I got the sun on me, man. All right, does anybody have any questions or comments about this story? I'm sorry I got a little bit talking about, we are on the questions and comments section, right? That's a very nice sentiment, CM. Lewis, I don't know if the Skeleton Crew movie ever is going to come out. Maybe, or show. Maybe it shouldn't. I don't know if I would subject kids to this. I'd be like, go on your way, little kids. Adam Sphere says, boys are simple. We just want heroic, good Jedis. Well, then there's Soul. He's a heroic, good Jedi. And I'd also like to point out that I have a theory as to why they might be dealing with some fallen Jedi. And I'm going to talk to you about it when I do my breakdown of episode 4. But I don't want to spoil anything with this week's episode. But I think it's an intentional choice. And it's unfortunate. It wouldn't hurt. If I were writing for Star Wars, I'd probably take aside some like a bro who was like, where am I in this? And who was like a super Star Wars nerd, who just like knew every little minutia detail about Star Wars. And I'd get one that I could trust, and I'd say, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, please. And then I wouldn't totally capitulate to them, but I'd factor them into my script. So, and Dave Filoni, by the way, seriously oversaw The Acolyte. So I don't know what's going to happen to Star Wars going forward. All right, I think we're on to our next story of the day. Okay. Story number 3. Thanks, Justin. I agree. I think going into The Acolyte cold is the best way to watch it because it's really great to see it unfold. All right, that's right. Boom, baby. Doc Hayes. That's hilarious. That's an explosion in a baby. I love that. That's so great. Okay. Oh, let me get rid of the Fallout thing. I guarantee you, Connor, that Sam Witwer is very much in the same area that I am. Let's see here. Like, acknowledging the situation, but at the same time, very supportive. Okay, story number 3. The Rock. Oh, what's happening here, man? The Rock just signed a major deal with Disney with his production company, $7. He, of course, has Moana 2 about to start filming. But then at the same time, how is he aligning with Disney when he recently told Fox News that he regrets supporting Joe Biden and that also he doesn't like woke culture? So then he's like, oh, hello, Disney, I love you. And you're like, what are you doing, buddy? Now, maybe Disney is like, yes, come here. So all your fans who love what you just said will then be happy with us. So that might be part of the reason, right? But then I'm concerned, hey, Max, I don't understand how this benefits Dwayne Johnson, besides the fact that he gets a nice deal with Disney. Although, wait till you hear about the ramifications of this deal. I think he should be very careful with this. All right, so, because I feel like some of his fans might be like, what are you doing talking to Disney, man? Okay, I think he's just really happy to have gotten a deal. All right, so $7 is his production company that he runs with his ex-wife and business partner, Danny Garcia. And I believe that's her brother, Hiram Garcia. All right, so first look deal. They have probably their company will get funding from Disney. They'll probably have an office on the lot if they want it. And Disney has the right of first refusal for any project that they come up with. So that's the deal. But what's interesting is that it runs across all of Disney's divisions. And Disney, of course, has a tremendous amount of divisions. Now, for instance, one thing that they recently took over was Behind the Attraction. That was like from the team that made The Toys That Made Us, a great show on Netflix. And The Rock and Danny Garcia produced a Disney version, which would take you behind the attraction. That's right, Robert Mari, you watched that. I watched season 1 and loved it. Season 2, I watched one episode, and they put Danny Garcia on there as a Disney expert, and I stopped watching it. Because I was like, she's not a Disney expert. Then you could put anybody on there. So that really frustrated me, because I thought I was supposed to be hearing from, professional people who actually worked on the attractions. And she wasn't the only person in there like that. They had a couple of Disney fans. And you were just like, I don't want to talk to fans about this. So that was like kind of an issue for me. And I stopped watching the show, even though I had liked the first season so much. But then I think IndieWire put this out there, which I thought was really, really interesting. And IndieWire said, hey, why don't they, these days Disney serves quite a bit of alcohol at the parks, to their detriment. In fact, a number of us feel that's a problem because it's not fun having drunk people running around the park, okay? But what does Dwayne Johnson sell? Tequila. So maybe now Disney will exclusively sell his tequila, or they'll, be something that they prominently use. So that's an incredible amount of money for him, potentially. Then also, Dwayne Johnson is really into fitness. So there are gyms at many Disney resorts and on their cruise lines. So The Rock very much could find himself there, pushing a fitness routine, potentially. I mean, it's a good idea, but I have some concern that we thought The Rock might be overexposed as is. This seems like a lot of potential overexposure. Oh, that's right, Cosmics. His Salt and Straw. He's invested in Salt and Straw, the ice cream company. His portfolio is amazing. That's right, Classic Bunny Librarian. He can sponsor Disney marathons. And part of me would love that. But if I saw The Rock every day, it's like he's got to be like Mickey Mouse. You don't want to be there all the time. But that's right, Cosmic. Salt and Straw has locations in downtown Disney in Los Angeles, at least. Nicholas says a friend got vomited on a Disney ride because they were drunk people on there. He is never going again. Nicholas, what ride was it? I'm horrified. Oh, I've never even thought of that happening. Danny says The Rock joining the MCU, he'll ask to fight Galactus. Maybe in a commercial. Nicholas, I need to know what attraction that was if you know. Oh, Brandon, they're opening one in Orlando as well, of Salt and Straw? That's interesting. I don't think that he knows. But that's horrible. My God, I thought it was bad enough. I told you my story. I was on Guardians of the Galaxy with a bunch of drunk people, and that was really rough. It was the weirdest Disney experience I've ever had. They did not follow any of the rules. Adam Sphere, if you would like to partake, I don't drink, but if you like to partake in alcohol and you can do so responsibly, that's great. But I don't want you to be drunk at the theme park. Blair Wraith says, now all I picture is The Rock bringing pedal bars to the park? What do you mean? Is that I'm not a weightlifter either, but that sounds like a gym thing. All right. So anyway, we got distracted by someone throwing up on somebody on a Disney ride. We were all disgusted. So we'll see what happens with him in this deal. I suspect he's going to be making a lot of Disney movies now. He's going to have an Amazon one come out later this year. His big Christmas movie with Chris Evans and J.K. Simmons. So we'll see how it turns out. But I do feel that him being everywhere and all of its products being everywhere. Also, I think Disney has to be careful. Everything that comes from Disney is supposed to come from Disney. And I have some concern that if it's like, oh, Disney is pushing something else, it's like the same reason nobody wanted McDonald's in the parks. Like nobody wanted McDonald's in the parks, and that ended up going away. I don't like Starbucks in the parks, and I hope that they soon go away as well. I like Disney to be Disney, because you go there for that experience. And I agree with a lot of people that Disney is focusing too much on IP. And we sometimes like to have original attractions and experiences that aren't based on something else. But someone made a good point to me recently. They said that not only did Walt pass away, but everybody who worked under Walt is now kind of gone. And so you have people who now run things who unfortunately were never taught by Walt and don't have the same values and understandings that he passed on to his team. And it's a shame that nobody there bothered to train anybody. Walt, I love Walt, but he was a little bit of a sexist, and he did not train either of his daughters to take over his legacy because he felt that their husbands would. And their husband briefly did. The oldest daughter's husband briefly did, and he had to be taken out because he made such a disaster. He was a football player. You're like, how would a football player run this stupid company? It was really dumb. But he never trained a successor. And also he died very early because he did not know he was going to get lung cancer or whatever from smoking. So very sad. But he never trained anyone. He never trained anybody to take over his legacy. And nobody else who worked for him after he died trained anybody. And I think that's a big problem and why Disney seems so much like a different company sometimes these days. Reggie Reg says, Reggie Reg considers himself pretty liberal, but seems like Disney is pushing agendas instead of good writing. Well, again, I think The Acolyte is... I pointed out some plot holes in this upcoming week's episode. I can see what you're talking about, but I wouldn't say it's horrible writing. It's just not as strong as maybe we would like. But there are elements in it that I think are so interesting, it doesn't bother me. I mean, come on. How many Marvel things have not been well written, right? Come on, right? Like, that we liked, that we objectively liked. But I just told you earlier in the stream that Bob Iger is trying to change that, where it's story first and message second. You can't get rid of message. Message is important, but it should be second. Blair Wraith says it's basically a bar that you drink at, but it's a huge bike that everyone around the table pedals. Oh, it's a gym bar. That's funny. All right, does anybody have questions or comments about this? That's true, Maya Dway. Disney seems all suits and not hearts and creativity. Was Disney a publicly owned company under Walt? I wonder. I don't know if it was. I know he had to do a lot to fund his parks, and that's why he went so much into television. But I think I was talking about this to someone the other day, and that the Wall Street has been one of the worst things to happen to society in some regards, because companies no longer feel they have a responsibility to their consumer or their employee, but to their shareholders. And therefore, their priorities are really messed up in terms of what's good for society. Hey, Aralysis, thank you. Oh, Disney's been public since 1957? Thank you, Robert. All right, I think we're ready for the Ask Me Anything portion of the stream. Okay. All right, here we go. Q&A, here it comes. Boom, baby. It's 3:57. We can talk until 4:07. Then I must go. Vlad says, I do have a specific complaint about writing nowadays. Time seems to not work properly. Things happen way too fast or too slow in relation to other in-story events. That's a very specific critique, Vlad. I'm not sure. Let's see. Oh, here's Vlad's comment. Vlad. This writing is bad thing is such a vague umbrella statement that can be used whenever a project is too diverse for someone. That does seem to be a little bit of the case, Vlad. I agree with Kareem. You know, I think nobody's pointing to this. I mean, it probably would take a long time, but I don't know. It's just so much hate. Hey, Brendan V, I hope you had a good time at. Oh, you're going to see Inside Out 2 soon. I hope you have a good time. Catcheck says, I finally watched my Barbie Blu-ray and I love this movie, but how can they do a sequel now that she is mortal? What is your suggestion on how to do it? Well, I said I wanted to do a Ryan Reynolds Ken movie. You know, she could go back into Barbie Land maybe. I think it would be fun maybe to have a different Barbie potentially, or focus on other Barbies. I really would ask Greta Gerwig what she wanted to do, because I never could have imagined a Barbie movie the way that Greta Gerwig did. And it worked so beautifully that I honestly would be like, do you have any other ideas? Maya Dway has a good point saying, I remember loving the prequels as a kid, and new Star Wars fans and the cast creatives were treated horribly. Yeah, the prequels were such a bad time that George Lucas quit. He couldn't take all the hate. And then look where we are now. I don't think anybody would buy Star Wars, by the way. Some people are like, sell Star Wars. Who would buy this thing? All the tires are flat. It's been burned to an empty husk. Let's see here. I'm like, I don't want that car. Let's see here. Chico says, Grace, what are your thoughts on Ariana Grande playing Catwoman? I'm not a fan of it, Chico. I feel like she's trying to get herself cast in something maybe. I'm like, just leave the superheroes alone, man. Let's see here. Gap says, Grace, other channels covered House of the Dragon episode 1. How come no non-spoiler review? They just reviewed the first episode as a non-spoiler review? That seems like a waste of time to me. I mean, I'm working on my breakdown for Sunday. I filmed it. I'm getting ready to edit it. But I don't think I can review just one episode and tell you what I think of the show. Let's see here. I guess they're doing first reaction videos? Let's see here. Dancing Dog 60 says, to be honest with you, I'm waiting to see what everybody's reaction to the show is. I'm not sure about this one, man. Okay, I saw a couple of people rating House of the Dragon Season 2 like at a 7, and I thought that was accurate from what I've seen so far. Dancing Dog 60 says, did Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes do well enough to get a sequel? Let's see how it does on digital. I think it did okay. Hey, Poke, welcome back. Mary says, if AMC expanded the deal of Interview with the Vampire's showrunner, Roland Jones, and there will be new spin-offs, does this mean that the show is doing well? Yes, it does, Mary. We never see it on the Nielsen charts, but what it means is that it's doing well for AMC, not the theater chain, but AMC, the channel. It's clearly something that's bringing engagement to AMC, probably in multiple areas, and maybe perhaps it's doing well when it becomes available on digital. And there's one thing, Mary, is that AMC has AMC Plus, and it might be driving a lot of traffic onto that streaming service, which is not huge, but maybe Interview with the Vampire is helping keep it alive. So I think that, I don't know if I would say it's maybe doing really well, but it's certainly doing well enough that it is of value to AMC. LJ Harris says, any tea on Lyrica O'Connor reprising her role as Nico Minoru for the MCU? Watched Runaways for the first time and need more Nico. I think they would recast, almost for sure, because I'm not even sure who you're talking about. So yeah, I don't think there's I'm glad that you enjoyed her performance, but I don't think there's enough for me to potentially have the problem of connecting to another show and then having people ask me if I'm going to cast other people. Is just not worth it. The Fawn says, what is your preferred movie setup at home? Dolby Atmos surround sound, 4K? I have a Bose sound bar that was given to me for Christmas. And it's sometimes acting up a little bit lately that I have to reboot it, but I liked it very much. Let's see here. Ricardo, I've watched one episode of House of the Dragon. For most critics, they're only giving people one episode a couple of days in advance to prepare our coverage. CM said, Grace in the chat, ease my anxiety. I'm glad to hear that. Let's see here. Carl says, the first season set such a high standard, I can't see season 2 matching it. Well, it starts out slow again, just like the first season did. Although it has a big ending, so you might make sure you tune in so it's not ruined for you. Mark Chapman says, Grace, I feel people Hollywood primarily attracts are liberal-minded people and not conservative. There is a lack of conservative content because there aren't a lot of those creators out there. Okay. Well, I think that there are actually a lot of closeted conservatives in Hollywood. Ronald Reagan, Kelsey Grammer, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and a number of executives are conservatives. David Zaslav, Bob Iger, Jerry Bruckheimer. There are actually a number of conservatives. I think that they are traditional conservatives. They don't have the hate element that a lot of conservatives today, unfortunately, have. I think they're conservative largely in like fiscal ways. And I think that, I think they're conservative, but again, not like to the degree that you're seeing is the most popular today. And I think that, nobody likes hate anywhere. And I think that, and you have seen Hollywood have a willingness to go into that area with some religious content and also, of course, Yellowstone. I mean, that's produced by Hollywood. Very successful show. So I do think that because of the risk that's involved, there are more people on the liberal side in Hollywood because conservative people usually wouldn't take that kind of a risk. And also, again, it's a business of who you know. So you help people who are similar to you. And so I think that that's really the issue. But I think that until that the conservative side gets rid of this hate that's really bringing them down, I think you're going to have an issue. Would it be great if we lived in a utopia where Hollywood had multiple projects, and some appealed to this group and some appealed to the other group, and then there were some things like Top Gun Maverick that appealed to everyone? That would be the ideal. So I think that really just hate's really messing things up a lot. And the idea that people don't want the other stuff to even exist, which is crazy. It's like, well, just don't watch it. Julian says, so sorry about the trolls. The way it doesn't show up on you in terms of your coverage is inspiring. Thanks, Julian. It's been rough, but you guys cheer me up. Geek Legion of Doom says, you mean conservative but not Republican. The people I listed are Republicans. Let's see here. see. Okay. My review says, Grace, I think you should rewatch the original X-Men show. You missed a lot of references and it was amazing. I'm not watching that much stuff. It's too much. I'm not going back and watching the original X-Men animated series. I mean, I thought about it. I actually went to the page on Disney Plus and I was like, it's like hours upon hours. It's just, I don't want to do it. Let's see here. Poke says, what do you think about a Blue Beetle new animated series? Did they just announce that or something? Because Martine asked about it as well. I got to tell you, Blue Beetle, the power set is a little too complex in my opinion, but I know that he certainly has his fans. So if people are interested in that, I think it's a good idea. 80s model, I'm sorry I missed your super chat. Let me check. I'm glad you wished everybody to be doing well. You're always such a sweetheart. I don't see it. Must have been pretty far back. I apologize. Oh yeah, hi Grace. I've been super busy lately, and I wasn't able to watch the live streams, but happy to be here. It's always great to have you here. You are definitely a big part of this community. Okay, hold on. I'm going back. The struggle is real. That's very kind of you. Thank you for that sentiment. Let's see here. Ramsey says, is there anything coming up in July besides Deadpool and Wolverine? Twisters! I think that could be big. I'm excited. And Despicable Me 4. Haunted Autumn says, what do you think we will get first? George R.R. Martin's Winds of Winter or a Blade movie? I think the Winds of Winter. I don't think they're ever going to make that Blade movie, to be honest with you. And I hope that Mahershala Ali gets Jurassic, whatever they're calling it. By the way, though, I think they're making too much Game of Thrones content. They're starting to film a prequel, another prequel. I'm like, that's a disaster. Anna says, how would you pivot Blade Runner and who would you cast? I would get a strong male character in there to balance out Michelle Yeoh and Hunter Shafer. I think that would be really crucial. I'd be like, you got to give me somebody. And, I would like him to be a good guy. And I think that would probably help the show. Josh says, I think the lack of interest in shows is because summer is a bad time to release. Everyone I know wants to be outside doing things while we can. Plus June is like prime summer weather. I just also think there's like a lot of hate. And I think everyone's just is like, people are like, peace out. Let's see here. Hey Max, much love to you as well. Thank you for gifting a membership, My Reviews. Let's see here. Riley Steele, thank you. I'm glad you think it's hard to speak off the cuff like this on such complex subject matters. And you guys are really throwing me some curveballs. But, the whole point of these live streams is that you get access to me. Teriyaki Donut says, I think Reacher appealed to both groups. I think it did. I think Reacher was a show that I think a lot of Prime Video content leans conservative, interestingly enough, but does very well. Michael Wired6 says, do you have any thoughts about the possible strikes at the end of July? I work in the industry and it's been horrible since last year. I think there's a real concern that at Yahtzee, the crew members are going to go on strike. I don't think that should be able to happen. I think both sides should be responsible and work to get a good deal. I mean, obviously, they're both not going to get everything that they want, but they should just lock themselves in that room until they get a deal that they can both live with. Because the industry cannot go on a strike. I'm worried for you, Michael. I'm worried for all of us. It's affecting even YouTube coverage. And so they just cannot have another strike. Let's see here. Colby says, I understand that Yahtzee supported the actors and the writers during their strikes, and that was really wonderful. So they have to support them if they go on strike. But I would hope that Yahtzee and the studios would realize that the industry cannot afford it. Colby says, hey Grace, happy Friday. Casting idea. What do you think about Zendaya and Ayo Idibiri for Daphne and Velma and Netflix's Scooby-Doo series? Well, Colby, I think it would be interesting. That would be race bending the characters. And I think that, I probably wouldn't race bend both Daphne and Velma. Again, I think it's about balance and trying to have the broadest appeal. Unless that they're doing a Scooby-Doo series that's entirely of color. And then you'd have to realize that would have more limited appeal than something that was made to have broader appeal would have. That's a real curveball, Colby. Let's see here. MM92 says, part of me feels you did it intentionally. All right, MM92 says, Happy Friday, Grace. Do you have any hope in the future of the Exorcist franchise? Let's see what Mike Flanagan can do with it. I told you, he's real hit or miss. Lately, he's more miss. But when he hits, he really hits. Danny, you liked Anxiety as well? That's great to hear. Chico, I'm excited about Maxine. I'm trying to get into a press screening. Danny Dumphy says, Hi, Grace. My partner and I just got back from the Bahamas today. We need to catch up on BTT. I treated myself to a new Wolverine watch in honor of Deadpool and Wolverine, wanting to proudly represent all the X-Men fans. That's fantastic. I'm glad you and your partner had a wonderful trip. How could you not in the Bahamas? And I'm glad you treated yourself. Let's see here. Morphed, I don't think unions need curbing by law. I mean, I think it's on the studios. Let's see here. Tedder Tot says, Jodie Turner-Smith is Storm. I would have loved for her to be Storm. But I'll be totally honest with you. The reaction to The Acolyte is so bad, I would be nervous from a business perspective to cast her in that role. Which is such a shame. Again, if she hadn't been in this show, I think she would have had a really strong shot at being Storm. So that's why I tweeted that actors are not going to want to be in Star Wars projects going forward because they don't want to have this level of hate associated with them. And she's so good in The Acolyte, and it's just really unfair. Let's see here. My pleasure, Michael. I'm sorry I got your last name messed up there a little bit. Lindsay says a couple of billionaires tried to demolish Marilyn Monroe's house, but now the LA County Council is trying to vote to make her house a historical monument. That's good. I gotta tell you, so I'm in favor of capitalism, as you know, but it's definitely run amok. You know, they got the ex-head of Netflix is going up buying a ski town. You know, it's just really a tough situation. I love Janelle Monáe, Mikey, but hopefully if they're going for older characters for the X-Men, she'd be great. Zeke, I don't think Kevin Spacey will ever be able to return to Hollywood, nor should he. I think, if anything, his Piers Morgan interview showed no remorse and no understanding of what went wrong. Let's see here. CB says, and she has the Marvel connection as she was supposed to be Maria Rambeau. Who are you talking about, CB? Let's see here. Yes, Stray Films, capitalism needs to have some control. That is, that's where government is supposed to step in. Emphasis on supposed to. Oh, DeWanda Wise? I love DeWanda Wise, but also I don't know what age range they're going for the X-Men in the MCU. That's right, Haunted Autumn. My amok is from Hocus Pocus. I love that word. I'm way over my time. All right, everybody, let me do shout-outs. What's going on? Where are you? What are you doing? Cool Hive says, is there a $1 billion movie this year? I think it might be Deadpool and Wolverine. If it opens that big, it's definitely a $1 billion movie. But I think it's a very good shot at it. I don't know about Joker 2 with the changes that they made. I have some concern about it. CM, you're eating blueberries and almonds like I suggested? I had that earlier today too. Isn't it good? I'm so glad you're enjoying it. James Griffin says, watching the stream and prepping for my birthday tomorrow. Happy early birthday. Nicholas Cardillo is in Boston. Scottishman 97 says, watching the Euros in Scotland. It's not going well. Yeah, there's some big soccer event, right? I think some people say that's why they weren't watching the boys. Rogue Frocker is doing some spring cleaning. Georgie Porgy says, currently in Mexico, going to see Inside Out 2. Their snacks are super cheap here and super creative. Oh, take a picture. I'd love to see the snack stand in the Mexican movie theater. Please, Georgie Porgy, DM it to me so I definitely see it. I really would like to see what it looks like. Let's see here. Cool Hive says, I'm eating Sweethearts in San Diego, while Jonathan Taboada is prepping my dolls for a Barbie exhibit this Sunday. Ooh, that's very, very nice. Bye, Billy Baby. I'll see you on Sunday. Oh, Kiki, recovering from cosmetic gum surgery in Houston. Oh, I'm glad you're recuperating, and I'm glad you have the weekend to take care of yourself. The Fawn says, at work listening to you and working on some data entry. Oh, I love it. I'm glad I could keep you company. That sounds like the perfect thing to keep someone company while they're doing. MM92 is eating ramen. Well, Joey says, clocking back in at work. Can't wait till 5 p.m. Oh, that's right, Joey. You're very close to the end of your day. RJ14 says, hey, Grace, watching the stream and changing out toner at work for the printer. I'm glad you're doing that to help everyone. Why doesn't someone else do it? What the heck? Let's see here. Vlad says, hi from the Netherlands, where Inside Out 2 only comes out in mid-July. What? That's ridiculous, Vlad. Why should you have to suffer? Dane O'Leary is grocery shopping in North Virginia. Have a wonderful weekend, Grace. Thank you, Dane. Yes, I'm going to see you guys on Monday for Movie Math. That's right, Monday for Movie Math, because it's Father's Day. Mikey Bray says, in Manchester, UK, about to cook a meaty pizza. Oh, sounds delicious. Well, David Q is waiting to get out of work to watch The Boys. Oh, I think you're in for a treat. Some people said they didn't like the new episodes, which I was surprised at. Aneka says, at work and in a lot of physical pain. Oh, I'm sorry. So listening to you is a welcome distraction. Aneka rhymes with Monica. Anika. Monica? Anika? I like that you've told me how to say your name. Oh, Annika. Monica, Annika. Annika, I'm so sorry that you don't feel well and you're in so much pain. Oh, I assume you're seeing somebody for that, but I'm so happy that I can distract you for a little bit. Dakota Swallow is preparing a spicy smashed cucumber salad. That sounds good. Well, Big Witch is painting my first statue here in Seattle. Oh, that's so cool. And then Louise says, prepping chocolate chip cookies. You guys are so nice. I got to tell you, I'm really very, very happy with this community, and I want to thank you for being a part of it. All right, so I have a little fun review going up shortly for a Netflix animated movie that comes out for 4th of July. And then, of course, Movie Math on Monday, and I'll be continuing to break down these shows. Oh, wait, on Sunday night, my House of the Dragon review will go up. So I will be doing House of the Dragon on Sunday night. Okay, everybody, bye-bye. Bye-bye.